Alrighty. Hello, guys. Welcome to this week's episode of the PCH Pit podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about a week 3 review and week 3 previews. Before let's get started, we have the usual disclaimer. Any views or opinions shared on the show are solely that of the individual contributor and do not reflect the views of Peach Pit, any FRC teams, First, Georgia First, South Carolina First, or any of their affiliates and sponsors. So the idea behind this show is to serve as an FRC talk show that focuses primarily on the Peachtree District. We are going to be talking about a variety of topics, so don't be surprised if you see us drop some hot takes. Ultimately, we're hoping to provide some entertaining and engaging discussions. First off, my name is Thomas Priego, and I'm a consultant for Team 4451 Robots Garage.
And I am David Allred, the recipient of said consulting services from Team 4451 Robots Garage.
I am Brian Carlson from a 6829 Night Robotics, and I'm a strategy mentor there.
Hi, I'm Anupam Goli. I am a head coach and teacher for Team 9477 Lambda.
Alrighty, guys. Thank you for your introductions. Let's go ahead and get into our Gwinnett review. To start off, our champs were Team 17, the first seed, Team 1771, Team 1261, and their third bot, 8577. They were met in finals by the second seed, which was captained by Team 1683, with their first pick being 4509, and rounded out by Team 9522. The awards, the Impact Award was won by Team 4188. The EI was won by Team 4509. And the Rookie All-Star Award was won by Team 9522. And just confirming, Team Archimedes out of Flowery Branch, Georgia. So that being said, I believe Anupam and Brian were there. Can you tell us a little bit about quals?
Yeah, sure. So I think the big story in quals was 1771 dominating, and then followed by 1261 as well. Really, it was kind of their show between their autonomous capabilities, and then it was kind of them, and then the rest of the pack, which was led up by 1683 and 4509.
I think it wasn't the story of quals. It was really the story of the test match because there was a test match on was it Friday night, and they put up 50 points in Auton. 1771 and 1261 were out there together, and I'm not sure what the final score was, but before the tournament started, they put up a district high score. So it was sort of the biggest kept secret or the worst kept secret, really, that those two, unless something happened mechanically to either one of them, they were the obvious, number one alliance.
Thomas, you're on mute somewhere.
Muted.
I noticed that as well. I was fortunate enough to swing by and hang out a bit on Saturday morning. And something that I really noticed was the fact that they were so dominant. But something interesting that can happen, and then looking at the schedule, was that several teams had semi-favorable schedules where if the right things broke the right way, that they could have ended up seeding first. Unfortunately, 1771 was just so dominant that they were able to win every single one of their matches and then end up almost getting 3 RP every match. I believe they had a 2.92 ranking score average to the end of the event. And then it just became a game to play for second place. And that's really what Elam's ended up shaping up to be.
Yeah.
I think sorry, Brian. Just kind of like a narrative coming out of this was, again, autonomous was kind of the key factor in qualifications. It's really hard to overcome if you don't have a autonomous where you're scoring at least 3 or 4 notes. It's just really hard to make up that difference. And as we move forward, that bar is going to keep getting higher. So I expect by district championships that clearing those first 3 notes in the front will be the minimum you need to stay in a match, and then it'll be about those center line notes. I really wish I had some data on me to back this up, but I would wager that if you had a lead of 5 or more points coming out of Auton, you probably won the match.
Yeah.
And I'll say this: it was very obvious in the test match that there was going to be clearing the center line, right? And I'm not sure if it happened at. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, my headset just lost background noise. So anyway, it was very obvious in the test match that the two of those teams teaming up, they would clear the center line, and so I'm not sure if they happened at Anderson or at Dalton, but 94-77, Anupam's team did a counter Auton during one of the matches and disrupted 1771's magnificent center line Auton they had. We had to replay the match, but it was really great to see that.
Yeah. But
We actually, sorry, Thomas. We actually did one before that in a qualification match against 1261. Didn't disrupt the center line, but we had noticed that 1261 kept going for the same center note, and our kids wrote a path to go and disrupt that particular center note just for the heck of it and as a proof of concept for this autonomous. And so they were actually able to bump 1261 and cause them to misalign and miss that shot.
Yeah,
in autonomous.
I think as this goes on and Autons become such a killer, right? If you can't keep up and challenge those, you're gonna have to find some way to keep them from getting them, and then playing that chess match of who's gonna pick the right Auton.
And I think that's something that we'll definitely see. I think this game draws in a lot of comparisons to two games. I think if you look at 2015 and then 2022 as two good comparable options, I think in 20, you see where Autons just become so killer that at early season events where the Auton depth just isn't there, you see teams that have these perfect autonomouses or these good autonomouses just being able to boss out the event. But I think when we come to district champs, the skew, because Autons, more and more teams are going to be able to A, contest the midline, or B, put up at least 2 to 3 pieces in autonomous as a team, and then have a couple teams shooting their preloads as an alliance. That what the skew will then switch towards what teams can do in teleop. A team that the game that reminds me of is actually 2481 in 2018, where they had a killer autonomous robot, but then that was just killer at their first couple events, but it wasn't too great in teleop. And then all of a sudden, when they started going to deeper events later in the year, where the autonomous gap was starting to get bridged and the teleop was what matters, they ended up falling behind and losing effectiveness. That's where this game, if you are a team that has an Auton gap right now, you need to really focus on finding out how you can eke every little bit of points out of your autonomous, but also be real irrational and realizing that you're probably not going to be able to get 50 points at Auton in future events like you are now, and you need to start figuring out ways on how you can maximize your teleop cycles with looking at things like ferrying and better optimization in amping.
Right.
That kind of leads me to talk a little bit about playoffs and the role of amplification. So I don't know. I didn't see much of that at Anderson because it was really just 2974 and 343 out shooting everyone. But we saw a little bit more amplifying and amplifier play at Gwinnett. I didn't watch Dalton too much. I know there was a little bit there, but it seemed like in Gwinnett, like if you did not have an amplifier bot in playoffs, you were kind of doomed. That was our story as the 8th seed. We did not have an amplifier bot. We had firepower, but we ended up losing to the 6th seed despite outshooting them in autonomous and in teleop because we didn't have any way to do amplifier, and they did. And so they were able to score a last-second amplified shot to bridge that gap. What was your experience like, or what have you seen?
I mean, I've definitely seen more of the same. Something that I've really noticed both in Peachtree and in other regions and events is teams getting used to when they need to press that amplification button. I've seen a lot of teams press it as their robot is driving up, or press it like right before any robots get shot. But if you read the rules, you can actually press it as your robot is in the act of shooting, or right as your game piece is being scored, to try and really maximize when your amping is going. And another thing I've noticed is a lot of teams are struggling in coordinating with their alliance members of, hey, we're about to amp here. Let's make sure both of us can get off at least one shot. So you're guaranteed that, barrage of amp shots, where some teams will, and especially in quals, will press it because, this is a perfect time for the amp because I'm about to shoot, without realizing, okay, if I wait half a second on both my shot, I can then guarantee that my alliance partner also gets an amp shot, and stuff like that. So there's definitely a lot of amp optimizations that can be done in teleop.
Yeah, I just went back and looked at Anderson, Walton, and Mellon Motion were shot a little more than half of their teleop and amplified period. They Walton came in, and that's the strategy they flat out ran every match, and including the playoffs. So yeah, I think amplification optimization is gonna, well, by the time you get to district champs, if you're not doing that, you're toast. And we've already seen it in these events. Now, again, probably at Gwinnett, they could have outshot you anyway, but still, amplification made a difference in some of the playoffs.
Yeah, I thought it was also interesting. 1261 and 1771 had a late quals match together, and during that, it was right around the match 60s, I think it was. And during that one, 1261 was just cycling, and 1771 was doing the amp and doing it quite fast. And so it was very interesting. I think I had to step out early for some previous engagement, but I don't believe that they focused that much. They sort of switched strategies in quals one, where 1771 was sort of feeding them, in the first playoffs match. So it's interesting how they sort of shifted away from the amp and then going to try a feed strategy.
Did you see anybody doing feed strategies significantly in either qualifications or playoffs?
We did in quals. We kind of recognized, especially where we were not the primary scorer or where we would get outshot by our alliance partners, that it was better for us to feed. And so we did that in a match where we had 1771. We fed them a few times. The match we played against 1771, rather than doing full field cycles, we thought it would be faster to try and feed our partner robot, 7538. We did it with 1261 and 4509 as well. But I don't think we saw that in playoffs, which I think it would have been a little bit more effective than some of we ran a strat of having a defender and the two of us, like us and Gear Bears, playing offense. I feel like it would have been more effective for us to have our other robot play shuttle, even if they couldn't do too much. It would have been better in that instance.
Yeah. And in the field, there was still a, if you look at the previous competitions, there's usually been the one or two that straight stand out, and there's a couple of bots behind them, and then things sort of quickly fall down as far as performance wise. And that was still the case at Gwinnett, right? Where there was a handful of bots. So in quals, you had a lot of some lower scoring matches. So being able to feed somebody in extra cycles, that became very beneficial. And I saw teams doing that in quals. That did not, a lot of the bots that can benefit from that were picking two scorers. So, we'll see how it goes, though.
Yeah, I didn't see many of the matches, but I think I saw North Gwinnett feeding in one of the playoff matches, but it looked like it kind of threw their rhythm off a bit.
Yeah.
They didn't seem to be quite as effective when you have your primary scorer trying to feed and then go score again.
It was interesting.
I think they were just trying.
Sorry,
Brian, I keep cutting you off. No, as the team they were doing that against, I think they were just trying. They knew they kind of had an easier matchup, and I think they're just trying to try a strategy out. We kind of approached it the same way. We knew we were going to lose that, so we wanted to try our strategy and see how effective it was.
Right.
Yeah, because I think they scored, was it in the 80s right there in their first quals or something like that?
And there was 25 points in penalties.
Right.
So,
and in that qual 60, they put up 105. Right. So it's like definitely not where they could have been at. Right.
Yeah. It's all good.
Yep.
Any other notes from you guys about the Gwinnett event? Going in, we thought this was at least I thought it was the strongest district event prior to district champs. Did it prove out to be that kind of way?
So my thought is that it had a high top tier and a very decent mid tier, but there was a big drop off in robot capability around, in the 8 seed. First pick, I think, was second pick was the last really offensive robot. The rest were defensive or weren't very capable of scoring. And there were even some captains who really weren't all that capable of scoring. So it was kind of a top-ish heavy event to me. I think, like, kind of a preview of things to come, Carrollton might actually end up being the deeper one, but we can talk about that a little bit.
I think it compared a lot to Anderson, where there was 2974 was a clear favorite. Now at Gwinnett, you had two with 1771 and 1261 both being up there, and you had a strong second tier. So it is a step up from Anderson, I'd say. It'll be interesting to see when all three of those bots, 1261, 1771, and 2974, get together, how things go.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. For me, I don't really consider an event deep unless there's a potential for there to be 2 to 3 alliances that you can look at and go, okay, these alliance events have the chance. All 3 of these alliances have a chance to win the event. So, like, looking at it, that's where I'd say Dalton right now has probably been the true deepest event if you look at it. Like, yes, a lot of the teams that were there didn't really have the same top end that we've seen out of 1261, 2974, and 1771. But that event, you truly had parity. I think what you had there, the 6th seed, was it the 6th seed or you had, I know it was you had the second seed alliance and the and the 4th seed alliance in finals, but you had the 1st seed drop matches, the 6th seed make it a semi-deep run. So there you really had a good host of alliances that could win it. And that's where, looking ahead, I think we have a couple events where that is still where that might be the case. But right now, Dalton for me probably looks like it is going to be the quote unquote deepest event that we see before district champs.
Yeah, but I'm curious to see what 6919 does with 1771 and 1261 coming down there at Albany. That because it's almost a repeat. It's a repeat of this, right? We just drop out Techno Titans, right? And I think right. So it's definitely gonna get stronger, right?
What happens?
Yeah. So a couple of things of note at the competition. One is there were some field problems that caused a replay and some delays in some games. So the scoring mechanism, the amp, and stuff like that. So be aware of those things that the gremlins can kind of sneak up a little bit. And when they went through and did double checks and they saw the problem with the amp, they replayed because it was kind of interesting, like how in the world was that score so low when 1771 was out there with Auto and Ignite, and 1771 puts up just a ton of points. So it's good they caught that, but just be aware of that going forward to sort of watch what's going on, and if you see something that's unusual, let your drive team know.
Cool. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I also thought it was a pretty bold strategy of the number 1 alliance to go 1-on-3 in finals 2. I was very confident of them. But talking about gremlins, I think both of those robots lost their Rios.
Yes.
Right?
Well, that was a story. Brian, you probably have more information on that.
I do not. I had to leave early, so I was not around during then, so I don't know the story.
I just know I was in pits, kind of relaxing, and I was watching 1771's people all crowding around the robot. And what I had heard that was that their Rio had died, and they had to get a new Rio in there.
With chips.
If they had, so they put the old one through the wood chipper.
Light this up.
Wait. Are they going to burn the old one with the bot? Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I think they shorted their DIO bus. They had officially found out.
Yeah. You got to cover up those Rio slots, especially when you're drilling around it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Some things I'll also like to shout out. I like the test matches. I like the new practice field format. Thank you, Kellen. I know he's not here now. And even though it was a short 6 or 9 minutes we had on the practice field, it was great to see everybody have a time slots and prioritized in alliance order to get people through there. So I think that went well.
Yeah, that was huge. Being able to bring your whole alliance to the practice field top strategy, like look at potential like changes to autonomous, things like that, was really effective. One thing that I want to go a little bit back towards alliance selections. O'Brien, Thomas, I don't know if you were keeping up too much, David, but what were your thoughts on kind of the order of picks that happened there?
I thought, I honestly expected, I didn't have enough look at the data or to look at matches to really have any like concrete opinions. But I really do think something based on what I've heard from various other people is that there was a move away from grabbing amp bots and just saying, okay, we can amp, like a speaker bot can necessarily amp. They won't be able to do the amp as fast as a dedicated amp bot, but just having that pure offensive output was definitely prioritized over something that could amp. So that's where the picks in that case kind of make sense to me, where you have, teams going after, okay, what's a team that can put up the most speaker shots? And then on top of that, I think a lot of teams outside of really, when you look at it, the multi-pieces weren't really there once you stop looking like, okay, 1683 had one, but it was like 1261, 1771, 1683, and then maybe 1746 if the delays worked out just right in their auton routine. So looking at it, a lot of teams just said, okay, let's just start trying to maximize teleop speaker shots, and that's just the way it went through it.
Yeah. So in watching Otto play, they were second competition, right? So a lot of experience under their belts, and they really played that role well, where they would go down, dump in fast, and then place a note ready to go, or maybe two ready to go off to the side, and start the stashing strategy. And then drop one in and immediately have a bunch of notes ready to go. It's I from where we were at, I wasn't looking at those, at those things. So I didn't do a lot of analysis of who I would pick in that 3 spot. But yes, it's definitely a strategy choice there, which way you wanted to go. From what I've heard, they were looking at both of them, right? And so it wasn't just a slam dunk. We're just doing one thing. It's considering all the options and trying to figure out how they wanted to play it, right? Because there's so many ways you can play this game.
One bit of two bits of feedback that I got was first of all, we did a lot of shuttling in matches, 94-77, and we had the spoiler auton, right? So something funny that I heard was all the kids were saying every single team is you guys are the sleeper third bot. Well, when every single team says that you're the sleeper third bot, you're not the sleeper third bot anymore, and you get picked up pretty early.
Yeah.
So, but personal bias aside, I feel we could have gone a little higher. And honestly, 9480 should have gone higher than when they did. They had a consistent 2-note autonomous and very capable during teleop scoring. I would just say make sure you use StatBotics if you're not tracking stats. And don't let that 9,000 number fool you. Like,
Yeah, look at the body of work.
yeah.
Look at the body, not the bumpers.
Not the bumper numbers. Ignore the bumper
Yeah.
numbers. All right. So are we ready to move on to our previews?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. We can come back to more gameplay, as we do some wrap ups and thoughts. I guess I'll start off with North Charleston. So North Charleston event, or the Charleston event, is in North Charleston Athletic Center. That's a new event this year. The South Carolina committee will be moving venues around every year as we can, as we don't want to just lock into one place in the state and be done with it. There has been the Palmetto Regional in Charleston before at the North Charleston Coliseum. This is the athletic center just down the road a bit. There'll be 29 teams there competing, 5 border hoppers from the state of Georgia. So again, a pretty good event. There are no defending champions because it's a new event, but the week for Hartsville last year had 44.51, 11.02, and 47.87. The Bulldog Autobots. Only 11.02 out of that trio will be there. So it looks like if Thomas, you're saying parity is the name of the game here, and several different alliances can win it. This one has got that feel to it, right? So you've got Metal in Motion, 343, the first pick of the winning alliance at Anderson. You've got Making Magic 1102, who was ranked first at Dalton. And I have seen them, some videos of them where they're bringing some improvements to their bot to make them a little more speedy. You've got 6366 Ramrod Robotics that was ranked second at Anderson, and very good cycler this year. And Viper Drive 3490, the finalist captain, will be there. You also got a whole group of robots that are really good this year. I mean, some of these are the best robots I've seen these teams build. You've got 2815, the Blue Devil Mechanics. Again, I think that's the best machine they've built. They're sporting, I believe, a 3-note auto now. You've got the Due Westerners that have been improving this year. I've seen a 2.5 auto they've got. Burning Magnetos has been a great cycler, got a good solid climb. The Green Villains, you've got Cat 5, you've got the Undercogs. They've built their best robot in a while. You got Phoenix, which is more of an amp strategy player, but again, been contributing to alliances. And then you also have 2 potential trap robots there, 343 and 1051. So it should be a pretty spicy event from parity standpoint. I don't see a clear number 1 here.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And you probably have more information on what improvements these teams have made. But 343 is kind of like the top that I'm looking at. But 6366 wasn't too far from them. And then I'd be interested in seeing how 8575 has improved. They started out strong, and 342 as well. That kind of surprised me. Was they had a multi-node autonomous working climbing capability. So it looks like this South Carolina event's going to be pretty deep, honestly. Something that you can probably tell. Or have you seen South Carolina teams or events this developed before, David? Before districts?
No, not before districts. No, again, a lot of the teams in South Carolina, there was a whole contingent, especially up in the Myrtle Beach area, that was one and done. They played Palmetto, and that was it. And so almost half the state was just a one event team. Now, even in the second year of districts, I'm seeing a lot more focus from the teams, a lot of rebuilding and improvements and iteration. I'm just super excited about this. And so some of these teams are knocking out, again, the best robots I've seen them build. And hopefully that trend will continue. I think we're still lagging a little bit behind in size and depth of Georgia, but as you saw at district champs last year, we come to play.
Yeah. So, do you think this will be the first week that we see a trap?
Well,
We've already seen a trap.
Trap point.
Oh,
Yeah, we've trapped.
where was the first
Anderson.
trap?
Anderson. Yeah, I've trapped in 2 qualification matches in Anderson, and we tried one in eliminations and just missed a shot.
Gotcha.
So right now we are the lone trappist.
So who had the low score on trap?
Huh?
Who had the low score on trap?
I think it was Kellen.
I had 12.
No. I think Anupam, you had 18, or is it 12?
12.
You might be closer. I don't know. It's
Right.
We're on track
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, I think Kellen had 25, was it?
Yeah, 25. So obviously, right, this game has kind of like flipped on its head, where in game is like everybody's ignoring it. I didn't see many teams at Gwinnett even climbing.
Yeah.
Shooting park, right? They didn't even bother climbing.
It's hard to
It's hard to
justify
justify climbing if there's not a
when-
trap robot there.
Yeah, and it's 3 points versus you get a last second note in there and you park. That's the same amount
Right.
of points, right? So, and you have to have a whole different mechanism to do 3 points.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So anyway, we're the lonely people hanging around up there. We'll see what happens. That was a strategy for Houston in ranking and ranking, but we haven't used it very effectively for ranking because we also have to have a climber with us. I don't know. Also, I don't know very much about the 5 Georgia teams coming. Let's see.
So there's let me look. I had it just now. Oops.
Yeah.
We've got the Benedictine brothers out of Savannah.
The
4701.
4701, the Warriors.
Which they won Dalton as a 3rd robot there.
Okay. The 6910 Mill Creek Steel Talons.
Mm-hmm. They were at Anderson, I think, right?
They were, right?
And
There's
6925, and they haven't played yet, but they had a
Mill Creek,
nice looking.
6910 was at Gwinnett. I'm sorry.
Yeah, 6925 is WA Robotics, and they haven't played yet, but they had a nice looking robot last year, so it might be a mystery box there.
Yep.
Cool.
All right. So with that, we have the Charleston event, and then we also have 2 events going this week. We have the Carrollton event going on, and I believe it's held in the University of West Georgia. The defending champs are 2974, 6340, and 1311. I believe 2974 and 6340 are going to be at this event, with 1311 taking the year off this year. Some other teams, some notable teams to really look out for is, of course, 2974, Walton Robotics, hot off there as one of the most dominant Georgia teams in the district that we've seen so far. They're definitely the team to beat. There's also team 1414 IHOT making their debut. Based on previous performances that we've seen them put out, they're definitely a team to watch out for. But with it being their first event, there's definitely might be some potential growing pains. You have Team 4188, which made a really deep run at Gwinnett as the 6th seed. And then, of course, you have Team 4451, Team Robots Garage. We're trying to make a good bounce back after not really achieving a lot of the goals that we had set for ourselves at the Anderson event. And then we have Team 7451, which I think is one of the teams that has who has had probably the best robot that they've built this year, or built any year rather. And then some other noticeable teams that are going to be their first event. We have Team 4459, the Leotex, 5848 Robo C3, and 9260 built for Bib. I think, like David said, I think this event is going to be pretty high octane. I think, though they probably won't have any other team that matches Team 2974's raw scoring output, they have a really robust mid-tier of teams. So I expect there to be I expect there to really be some good close elims action. And potentially even some upsets when they're not really being as big of a guarantee that one team can run away with the event, like we've seen in previous events thus far.
So, like, we were talking about event depth earlier, and this is my pick for deep event, not necessarily because of the top tier, but because there's so many capable robots that are there that have already played one event, or teams that have historically been very good that are playing their first event. Like, just looking at this team list, you have G3 Robotics. They've already played an event, and they made it decently far into playoffs. You have Walton, obviously. You have 3815, who was an Alliance captain at Dalton. 4188, who was an Alliance captain just this past weekend. 5109 was an Alliance captain this past weekend. 5293 made it deep into playoffs this past weekend. 6340 was in playoffs at Dalton. And, like, the list goes on. You have a lot of playoff experience in this roster of teams. And so I think that maybe your one seed is going to be the best with Walton, but there's going to be a slugfest in playoffs to get that second finals spot.
I'm agreeing with that. So, I mean, this is also the largest event in this year. So it's got 38 teams. I think I counted 24 of them being Swerve bots. So the picking on the back half of the draft might be more, options available to even the top alliance to play this game. But again, it'll be interesting to see if anybody can approach Walton. I think this is still you're auditioning for Walton's pick, right? As a potential here, but number 2 alliance will have some firepower. And number 3 alliance will probably have some firepower to battle it out to see who does make that finals.
I think this might be the one event. So in the past few weeks, we've seen kind of 2 offense robots, 1 defense, just because there's kind of been a lack of robot performance for the 3-bot. I think this is the one event, district event, where we might see that trend break, especially in lower seeds. It might be interesting to see if one of our lower seed alliance captains opts for, instead of a defensive robot, picking up a 3rd offensive robot to shuttle notes, or even just help them out during teleop and be a dedicated speaker or dedicated amp bot.
Yeah, that will be interesting. So, will a robot with an alliance with a capable 3rd robot try to just outscore them either with the feeding strategy or triple offense? But if you've got 2 top scoring robots, I don't think it'll be quite as dominant as the Gwinnett performance. So those 2 top robots there. But if you try to outscore 2 robots like that, with 3, you better go for it. You could be just setting yourself up again, autonomous. So whoever comes out with that autonomous lead is going to be critical as well. And you might not be able to catch up with the feeder bot or triple offense.
Yeah.
Scout autos apparently in game is not relevant, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to try to make it relevant again. We'll see.
The key, other than auto, it's basically how many cycles, right? Just score as fast as you can. And I think this is going to be just like Gwinnett, where the last 3 matches in the day 2 are going to heavily impact alliance selection, because somebody that starts going a little bit better or a little bit worse, since there's a depth there that you need to distinguish yourself. So practice field and add that little something on day 2 and help yourself out. And if Walton starts doing a Sutter Anton, do a counter Anton. Just drive down there. Just be aware that, don't push all the notes at one time. So make sure you do something not to push all the notes.
Yeah, don't get that tech foul. Or they were going to give us 3 tech fouls if we did it again like that.
All right. So with that, I think we've talked a lot about both events we have coming up, being Carrollton and Charleston. So we have next just a brief review of the quote unquote Thomas's Donut Shop, which is the official sponsor of Team 1683. We're in their pit; it counts. Thank you, Howard.
Thank you, Howard.
No.
There
is no T-shirt like I was promised, but we take what we can get. So we have just a review. We said the high score week 2. That's not really applicable. But how many times do we see the trap get scored? Kellen said 25. Anupam said 12, and probably is still too high for the season as we keep going. Brian said 45, and if I'm going to be honest, me and David probably had a bit of a stroke because he said 150 and I said 175 times, which at this point I don't think is possible.
we're out of the numbers now.
Yeah, we're out of the numbers. We asked how early in the season would we see an ensemble, which now that we've passed week 3, to my knowledge, I don't think we've seen a legitimate non-penalty ensemble bonus. But we have.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. We climbed, we trapped, and then 1319 climbed with us. A legit.
I think you might need to replace your consultant, because he might not be giving you good advice if he's like, "Yeah, nobody's done that
except
I've never seen."
Oh yeah, Qualls. Sorry, that was a while ago. We have done it. I've been focused on the future, Brian, not the past.
But we did the legit ensemble.
All right, so there has
had
been
a shot at a legit 4 rank point, but one of our motors was on the skits in that match as we were chasing our demons.
So that one we did. We did have that one. We did have a couple people get it right, with Brian, David, myself, and Kellen all saying week 2, and Anupam being the lone week 3er. We were all behind the ball on the Melody RP, and we have yet to see a 4 RP match in the district. It's just doing a brief.
Hold on.
That was
there was one. It was not legit. It was a penalty.
No.
It wasn't legit, but it was a 4 RP match. Quals 53 at Gwinnett was Red Alliance got the
I went back and reviewed
Melody.
the film. Not legit. Not
legit.
It was a
Not
penalty.
legit. Not legit. Only legit.
It was still
it was 4 RPs, but not legit.
It was 4 RPs, but not legit 4 RPs.
Well,
it's the spirit of the rules, not the letter of the rules, Anupam. It's my donut shop. I make the rules. Does not count. Does not count.
I'm going to leave a 1-star review for your
Good.
donut shop.
People still shop here anyways. All right. So right now we have a couple people. Brian and Anupam both said that we should see a 4 RP match take place this week. Kellen guessed week 5, and me and David both said district champs. With that, are there any final thoughts that y'all would like to say before we end the show?
Yeah, I've got a couple of quick topics that are more broad FRC. And a little bit about Peachtree, right? So right now, Peachtree has 3 of the top 50 EPAs in the world. In 1771, 2974, and 1261. So congrats to those three teams. I think actually top 40 to be more direct. So we've been putting up world-class numbers in this district. Or at least some of us have. Not me, but some of us have. And so and that's very calls for celebration for that. A couple other things that have been bouncing around on the Chief Delphi thing. Around two announcements or that came from the FRC blog. One was in the team updates. I mean, so one was field damage. Right, I think we may have mentioned that last week a little bit, and then a lot of people are complaining about robot frame damage they're receiving in this game, either from robot to robot hits or robot to immovable object hits. So people have been posting pictures of damaged frames. I don't know of many teams around here that have seen that. Have y'all?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, it seemed. I mean, I've seen some of the damage, and it seems I don't know if it's the plywood people are using or support they're not using.
So my theory is that down here we tend to avoid those like cross-field full-speed hits. Like we either drive out of the way or we're not at full speed. Well, realistically, the only teams that have been going at full speed have been those three that you mentioned.
Right.
I think a lot of these damages are coming from like full speed corner on corner hits or corner on side flat side hits with swerve. But I mean, we did see a noticeable uptick in week 3 with contact, robot contact. We had a few times where we had a Rio wire come unplugged from a hit we had taken. So I guess another reminder to hot glue your connectors or check your wires.
Did somebody eject a radio?
Yeah. Well,
Got it by another robot, possibly.
Yeah, there's actually on the PCH Mentor Slack, there's a video clip of it. Yeah, the question was, how many points do you get if you score a reel in the speaker?
Well, they're just buying for the new radio. Get rid of this old one.
We're switching control systems anyway, right?
Exactly. So yeah, and then the other thing that was just published, I guess today, for district champs happening in Israel starting tomorrow is they've upped the Melody rank point threshold for district champs, and they left it silent for world champs. So it's gone from 18 to 21, and probably in response to our missing of when Melody would happen. So obviously the shooting game's a little bit with the speed of the cyclers and the aforementioned bumper damage is obviously turning out to be a high scoring game, but they didn't anticipate.
Yeah. What I'm really liking about this game is, in 2022, when 1771 broke out their, 5 or 6 game piece odd time it was, taking advantage of the momentary control rule, you weren't coming back from that. And with the way this game plays, your progression goes to the center line. And so even though you don't have the ability to do that kind of odd time, you have the ability to stop them from getting their odd time to do counter odd time. So I think this game becomes a lot more enjoyable to play.
Cool. And we'll see where end game goes, if anywhere.
All right. How many matches?
Strip that dang thing off. I guess.
How many matches in DCMP elims will end up in 3 parks, right?
Right. Yeah. I feel like the GDC really struck out on the end game. Like the trap is worth a lot, but you have to, like you said earlier in the year, Dave, you kind of have to architect your whole robot behind that, and the climb is just not worth it. Like it's one extra note versus parking.
I'm kind of curious, with some of the the drop off we've seen in this game at different competitions, if some of the early robot in 3 days and open builds that sort of showed some ways of doing a trap and how it is a little more feasible. If
If
Yeah,
somebody,
that-
a couple of architectures that might have gotten the imagination going.
right, because this game is sneakily complex as far as what you're doing with your robot, right? Oh, speaking of different ways to do a trap, did you see the leaf blower bot?
Oh yes, the big squad. They are
Yeah.
the duper team, the big squad. And
Yeah.
if you haven't seen the big squad, it's 4028, right?
Yeah,
All right, I'm gonna
28.
check this out.
yeah.
You have a leaf blower that blows the note into the
So it looks like a
what
an
the wall as it's going into the trap. They shoot it up there and they kind of hold it with the air gun.
right, and sort of like the Iron Man. What was the American soldier? Not Iron Man, but the other guy, right?
Yeah.
He's got that like
Arm.
rocket
Yeah,
right
rocket
up there. It goes up and it blows a blast of air, push it in. It's really cool. It's kind of that's the innovation like you had in 2023 when you had 2022 Jack and the Bot doing the jump up, right? It's like really cool to see that kind of stuff.
Yep. Cool beans. All right. Well, I'm sorry, I got us on a different topic there, Thomas. I believe I wanted to throw in a couple extra topics for the meeting.
That's all good, but I think with that,
no.
I think with that, I
Reach
think
the
we're
end of
good
my lament
to-
on Endgame.
I think with that, and on that note, I think we'll end the show. Thank you guys I'd like to say thank you to our listeners for listening, and thank you to those of you who showed up to show up, and those of us who didn't show up. Shame.
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 Such shame.
All right.
Good
With
night.
that,
Shame.
good night, guys. Have a wonderful night.
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 See ya.